because I've been playing The Sims while I listen to this audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go, I wonder if anybody made any Sims of these characters.
Of course they
I
did.
went into the gallery and I searched Fourth Wing, and I was like, let's see some artist renditions of these characters. And what I saw was the whole cast.
Yeah.
But every one I looked at, I was like, ooh. Ooh. That ooh. It's very funny, and I immediately put them all in my town.
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice at that point. You can't just see them and like say, "Okay, see you later," and never use them.
Yeah, it was great.
I dramatically blocked it out.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the Barely Sober Book Club podcast. I almost didn't get it right.
It's still fresh.
It's
It's
still
okay.
fresh. Uh, I am one half host, William Woodard, and with me is the other half host, Alex Green.
Greetings.
Um, we, first of all, we're starting a new book. As you can see by the book cover in between us.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this book picked out ages ago.
Yeah, like before we even decided to take our sabbatical.
Yeah. And truth be told, I've been dreading it ever since.
I
Because
have
I
been counting
knew
down the days.
I knew it was gonna be a bad one. And uh I wasn't wrong.
But have you been pleasantly surprised?
I wouldn't call it pleasantly surprised.
I would for me, mostly because it's not it's not causing me undue pain. It's just a silly,
Sure.
goofy time.
Yeah.
I don't want to walk into the ocean the way that I did when we were reading Kingdom of the Wicked.
I was thinking about it earlier today. I think Kingdom of the Wicked might actually be the worst book we've ever done.
Yeah, because nothing like next to It Ends With Us, nothing has like destroyed my sanity the way that that book did.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to understand if it had to do with the narrator as well. Because part of me, when you read a book, a terrible book, you can kind of like skim over some of the more harrowing parts, or at least like it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't accost you the same way that it would in audio format.
yeah.
But
Which
you're dealing with the audio format of this book.
which is a different beast
Yeah.
entirely. Also, I wanted to talk to you about there's a TikTok, excuse me, a book talk discourse happening that has baffled me. in that why is this a conversation? And it's where do you put your bookmark when you're done reading? Do you put it exactly where it is or on the next page?
Why the fuck would you put it on the next page?
Well, for example, say you finished a chapter where the chapter ends on one page, you turn the page, and the next chapter is on the next page. Do you put your bookmark on the chapter that you're about to start or where you left off?
Oh, where my eyes would begin to do their reading business.
Right. There are people out here saying, "Oh, I put it exactly where I stop." And it's like, "Well, hold on a minute. That's crazy. What if you like have to just put it on the next one? If you finish that page, put it on the next one."
That's a bizarre take. Why?
Also, I only read in chapters, so I never put the bookmark anywhere other than the beginning of the next chapter.
I never stop reading at the end of a chapter. I always have to be somewhere in the middle. I'm the same
What?
way with, like, TV shows too, if I'm watching them on my own, I
Like
will start.
pause it right in the middle?
Yeah. Like, I don't like ending at the end of an episode. I need to see, like, the first few minutes of the next episode.
I
I
don't like
hate
that.
ending on an ending.
I don't like it. I don't like
And
that at
then
all.
to make matters more complicated for myself, I very rarely use bookmarks. I'm just like, "I'll remember where I was." So then I have to spend the first, like, 3 minutes of every reading dedicated time trying to remember where my place was.
I
Because it's
don't
never at the end or beginning of a chapter. It's always on some random page.
No, I brought up the fuck I brought it up because I thought it would be a funny thing for us to talk about and like laugh about, and you've brought up a much more serious problem. I hate that. I hate what you've just told me.
I'm really sorry.
Oh my god.
I've nearly killed you with this
Anyway,
knowledge.
let's start this book. We're reading Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and it starts with and this is a first for me. Because I heard it and I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" It starts with a content warning.
On
What?
the audiobook.
Yeah, because I don't have the physical one.
It
But
does not include that in the
and it's basically like, "Ooh, there's some like sex in this book and violence." Is there? What does it say?
Fourth Wing is a non-stop thrilling adventure fantasy set in the brutal and competitive world of a military college for dragon riders, which includes elements regarding war, battle, hand-to-hand combat, perilous situations, blood, intense violence, brutal injuries, death, poisoning, graphic language, and sexual activities that are shown on the page. Readers who may be sensitive to these elements, please note and prepare to enter. Now, how do we say is it Basgayath? Is that how they say it in the audiobook?
That's something that we're gonna get into. But in the
Okay.
audiobook, it's pronounced Basquiat.
Okay.
However, it is a Gallic word, Scottish Gallic, not Irish Gaelic.
Right. Mhm.
And I believe, don't quote me on this because I've only seen like a girl explaining the pronunciations of it, but I believe she said it's like Basquiat
Okay.
or something close. I've probably butchered it just as bad as Rebecca Yarros has.
She's a higher offender though because she's the one who put these words in her own book.
Yeah, and then said, no, that's not how you pronounce it.
Okay,
Which
but
is crazy. Don't put like literal cultural words in your book and then say, "Nuh-uh, that's not how you pronounce it."
and didn't she always wasn't she always like, "Oh yeah, I don't know how to say it in Gaelic," but it wasn't like it's not Gaelic that
Yeah,
she's using.
Gaelic is Irish. Gallic, like saying garlic like an Italian.
Mhm.
Gallic is Scottish, which is what these words are. Anyway, Uh, that's
Quick
kind of like a
story.
super mellow content warning. Like it's like, ooh, if you're sensitive to hand-to-hand combat, what are you talking about?
I know,
I can
but
understand the sex and violence, but like hand-to-hand combat? Okay.
I know. Um, okay. On the note of the content warning, I am fine with them. I think some
Right.
people really benefit from it. Who are we to dictate how other people should be responding to words on a page? Better to have it than to not.
Yeah.
I used to be super skeptical of it until I just saw more content of people explaining why they feel like they personally benefit from content warnings, and, like, I personally benefit from some forms of content warnings, and so it's a
Right.
little
Sure. Sure.
paragraph.
Sure.
You could
Sure.
skip over it if you want.
Yeah. And like, I don't actually mind that it's there. It's just very funny to me that the content warning is so extensive as to include like hand-to-hand. That seems excessive.
Or, like,
I can't imagine anybody who has like beef with hand-to-hand combat.
trigger warning, dragons, in case some of you have had poor experiences with them in the past.
Trigger warning. Battle leathers.
There should be a cringe warning.
Boy, oh boy, should there? Uh, this book also starts as like it informs you that this book itself is almost an in-world account, sort of like Lord of the Rings is.
Yeah,
Like it is a documentation of things that really happened. And right away I was like, this book is so far up its own ass.
it is,
That's
and
such a horrendous way to start a silly, goofy romance novel time.
I know, and I think we, the readers, know it's a silly, goofy romance novel time, but I
Yes.
don't know if Rebecca Yarros knows that that's what this is.
Boy, oh boy. It's crazy. And like immediately we're thrown into this world in like almost in media res of like an argument where the main character, Violet, is being bitched at by her mother. Literally, like truly bitched at. Like meh,
Mhm.
meh, 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 meh. And Violet's like, but I don't want to go to Dragon College, Mom. I
It's very
want to go to book school.
yeah, that's essentially the extent of their conversation. Her mom is some big time general in the dragon army,
Yeah.
and I guess the only academic institution in the city is the War College, so you kinda just have to pick, like, what quadrant you're gonna go to, and there's, like, the healers quadrant, and the dragon riders one, and the scribes
Oh,
the
do they have a map of the
tree.
actual
Yeah, there's a map.
of Basquiat?
Yeah, you wanna see it? This is the War College. So it's kind of
Wow.
dope because it actually explains, like, how things are laid out, which is not a thing that is ever described well.
No. Very
So,
little is described beyond like the outfits they wear. And even that, it's only very specific details of a part of it.
yeah.
It's very weird. Also, um, right away, this book has a horrendous problem with exposition dialogue in like the most clumsy, offensive way.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I think I don't remember the exact line, but I think one of her dumb sisters says something to her like, ooh, what are you gonna do at the college? And Like Violet like puts her hands on her hips and goes, well, I don't need the prohibited mind reading ability to tell you that I won't do that. And I'm like, ugh.
I didn't even pick up on that, to be honest.
Why would she put prohibited? Why would she say that? That's crazy. No, don't do that.
Yeah, because people existing in that world wouldn't need to explain
Yeah,
those things.
everyone knows that it's prohibited.
That's so wild. Yeah,
And
so
like
basically
also based on later in the book, prohibited is really burying the lead. They murder your ass for it.
on site.
Yeah, if
The
you are
minute
caught
they mess
mind
up,
reading, they murk you.
like neck snapping immediately.
So to say prohibited is a great like that's not the extent of the crime. That's
No.
like that's like saying murder is prohibited. Yeah, technically.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh," like, they should just say, "This is a capital." If you're gonna give us the exposition, say, "I don't need the
Yeah.
capital offense intrinsic with 3,000 N's power to know that."
Yeah.
But,
Go full send with your dumbass exposition dialogue.
yeah. Violet is the youngest daughter of number 1 dragon general lady, whose name we later find out is Lilith, which is like, of course, that's her name. She was like, "What's the most obvious, like, badass sounding name I can think of?
Yeah.
That's, like, kinda evil."
Who's the most
Lilith.
powerful? Who's the most powerful bad bitch in history? Lilith.
Yeah. And both her older siblings, her brother Brennan, who is dead, and her sister Mira, who is like the spitting image of her mom, are both like legendary dragon riders. And Violet, so little, so frail, was super sick with some kind of unspecified illness in the past, with which left her with like some kind of illness-induced balayage where like the ends of her hair are just silver for no reason.
Yeah.
And she's essentially like Alexei Romanov. But instead of blood, it's like her instead of blood clotting being her issue, it's that if you touch her, her joints shatter.
Yeah.
Um,
She,
and we know it's from
she-
an illness, but we
she's got
don't
like
know what it is.
she's got like the wasting disease
Pretty
and
much.
like bird bones.
And it's setting her up so well for always needing a big, strong boy to take care of her and protect her.
We'll get to that later, but that's something that I have such beef with. The girl who's like, I can take care of myself, but I would really enjoy it if everybody protected me all the time.
Fully.
Also, and this is a positive for this book. Our main character Violet is 20 years old. Thank God.
Firmly putting this book in the new adult genre, not young adult. Which
God. I was so worried that she was gonna be like, I'm just a 16-year-old like babe, and I'm like, I will not be reading sex in this book. I will be canceling all plans. This will never make it to air.
yeah, absolutely. Kind of like I don't know, the vibes I get from this book immediately are very Divergent meets Hunger Games
Yeah. I haven't read.
because
I don't know anything about Divergent other than like the one movie I saw.
Mhm.
I think, maybe.
Divergent is really similar to this book in the way that a girl who grew up in like the peace-loving, like agriculture sect of the society decides, except it's her choice in Divergent, she decides on like a lark to join like the badass train jumping, getting tattoos for fun, dauntless
Whoa.
set. And the whole thing is like, oh, better keep up, newbie. I think you're probably gonna die. And then she like jumps off a train or something, and she's like, I think I'm gonna get a tattoo. And then she kind of has like not an enemies to lovers relationship with, like, her direct supervisor, but kind of. Anyways,
Mm-mm.
Violet, back to Violet, she is needing to now go to Dragon Rider School, but in order to get to Dragon Rider School, every cadet, would-be cadet, has to walk across this tiny, slippery little parapet to get to the college, and it's like the first test where dozens of them will very likely die by falling to their deaths,
Baffling.
and you can only take to the college what you can carry across this, like, 200-foot high, narrow walkway. And so her sister's like, "Get all your fucking books out of your backpack, you fucking nerd. You do not need these." She's like, "But what about my folk tales?" And she's like, "Absolutely not." She repacks it like an experienced outdoors lady, gives her some rubber sole boots and some dragon scale armor. So she's essentially just like cheating from day one. She's like, "Sleep in this. People are gonna try and stab you because you're General Sorrengail's daughter, and everyone's gonna be out to kill you from the second they lay eyes on you."
And I mean, the whole parapet thing is a baffling choice. That's such a lunatic way to induct someone into a college.
It's just post-secondary.
Yeah.
Why you gotta kill everybody? Like, the birth rate in this world must be crazy with how many people are dying on their way to school.
Yeah. And never mind, like, the actual in school politics of everybody threatening everybody else's lives. But we'll get there.
True.
You are so lucky that you didn't have to listen to the audiobook because the narrator might be one of the worst. And not because she's like a bad reader, although she kind of is. There's like a bunch of points in that book where she stumbles over her words, and it's like, you didn't have to use that take.
Hey, do it again.
But just like the way that she says some words and how she makes some characters speak, I'm like, ugh, stop this. Like, she's like, every time someone says Sorengale in the book, she's like, Sorengale? And I'm like, ugh.
Insane.
Did,
Why would she
did
inflect
Rebecca
her
listen to
voice
this?
like
Surely she didn't think this was good.
that? Do authors get to listen to the narrating of their audiobooks before they go live?
I should fucking hope so.
Huh,
Unless
interesting.
you're Yahtzee, then you just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Then you know it's good.
Mhm. Um, so as she's told by her sister Mira to find Dane. Now, how is his last name pronounced in the audiobook? It's spelled Aitos, but that's me going back to my Greek history degree because
Um,
it's Aetos. So if this was Greek mythology, it would be Aitos.
right. Um, but I can confidently say that I don't know.
Oh, it doesn't matter. His name's Dane with an I.
Right.
She's like, "Go find him. He's your child." Violet, I'm telling you this now. Go find your childhood best friend, Dane. And then he can help you and get you into his like sect or whatever. So she
Yeah.
makes her way up to the parapet. She's preparing to walk over it. And everyone's like, "Stay away from Zayden Ryerson, your mortal enemy, the person whose parents were killed by our mother." Like, he it's the most immediate, like, this is gonna be an enemies to lovers book between the 2 of them
Yeah.
you've ever seen in your life. Because I guess, yeah, her mom killed his dad in the rebellion, and there was a rebellion of unspecified means where now all the children of these rebels in the uprising all have to now go to the dragon school to become riders to protect the country that their parents uprose against. But they all have these like rebellion marks, which in my mind are like when white guys get um culturally appropriative tribal tattoos. That's just what I picture in my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I don't know if Rebecca intended it this way. I don't know if this was her intention. However, a, government that is really into the military and really into training people into soldiers that can ride dragons to murder other people, when defeating a rebellion, forcing those people into the military is, the implications are insane. Like,
Yeah.
what is this society? And do is are we in a Hunger Games situation where the government is so bad that uh and who knows how this book series go? The third one isn't even out yet. But
Yeah.
are we looking at a Mockingjay scenario where they just defeat the government?
That would be pretty dope, honestly.
Could
Do
be
we think
worse.
Rebecca Yarros would go that route? We will see.
Lots of authors, lots, and this might severely date the episode, but I don't give a shit. A lot of authors these days are writing about politics that they don't agree with.
True.
Don't fucking write about overthrowing governments and then go, well, they have a
Both
right to
sides
they
have a
have a
point.
right to defend themselves.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
Anyway,
I I
one of
would
my favorite lines, like before she goes across the parapet, is when she's like getting ready and getting dressed, and they put her in that corset. And I wrote it down because I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've heard so far, and this is the first chapter.
Mhm.
The quote was, she had it like tightened, and she was like putting her daggers into her little corset,
Yeah.
and she said, as though my ribs themselves had become weapons. And I was like, what does that mean?
She's just really skinny,
Huh?
god.
Huh?
She's so small, as will be told every day for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. But back to Dane, I made a note, uh, because Dane is talked up quite a bit in before they meet, and I was like, ah, yes, the red herring boyfriend,
Yeah.
the one that she thinks she wants,
Mhm.
but I mean, we've all read this book 1,000 times.
He is the Gale from Hunger Games.
He is the Tamlin in.
I hope not.
Wait, which is the one that she like ditched for the other one?
Yeah, well, Tamlin, but he, like, imprisoned her. Like,
Well,
he they were, like, in love, and then he got, like, kidnapped and then stopped talking to her. He was like, "I couldn't let them know how much I cared about you, Feyre." And he did a lot of growling.
yeah, I
I
remember
would like it
that.
I would like it if Dane would not growl, 'cause well,
Oh,
I wouldn't have to hear it.
there's gonna be some growling in this book for sure.
Oh, yeah, it's like, "I'm channeling my dragon's power right now, I can't help it, our connections
For
are blinding."
sure.
I would like to read the passage I wrote down where
Yeah.
Violet spots Xaden Ryerson for the
Oh,
very first
it's a
time.
very good one because it's so stupid.
I know, and it's literally just like, he's Rhysand from ACOTAR. He is described in the same, like, racially ambiguous, like, fetishized way.
Mm-hmm.
So, ahem, here we go.
Dark skinned, but not hey, he's not black.
Tawny, that's
Right.
what they always say. So, he's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark brows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble, and when he folds his arms across his torso, the muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a
Whoa.
way that makes me swallow, and his eyes dot dot dot. His eyes are the shade of gold-flecked onyx. How can she see that from where she's standing? The contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. His features are so harsh that they look carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect, like an artist worked a lifetime sculpting him, and at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. He's the most exquisite man I have ever seen. And she validates that point by saying, like, and by the way, I live in the war college, so I've seen a lot of men. So, like, I know when one is really hot, okay? Trust me, girls.
Also, didn't she like just get there? What the fuck is she
She
talking about?
just got there. She made 2 friends, Rhiannon and Dylan, who's wearing the ring that he's gonna propose to his girlfriend with around his neck when he graduates from college.
Funny story. The character Rhiannon
Mhm.
in the audiobook, and I can only assume these pronunciations were guided by Rebecca herself for this audiobook. But Rhiannon is pronounced Rhiannon, which is incorrect. There's an A in that name.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met somebody with a name spelled like that, pronounced Rhiannon. Although, my middle name well, should I dox myself? I don't know. Probably not. My middle name is spelt one way but pronounced another, and it was entirely my mother's whim. So, who knows?
I mean, there's a lot of names in this book that are pronounced incorrectly.
True.
I'm grateful, however, that it's not a similar naming convention to ACOTAR or, and like this is like cruise missile targeting the people who make elves in Baldur's Gate 3. The naming conventions for elves in Baldur's Gate 3, I know what you're doing. Stop it with the vowels.
But how are
You don't need two eyes next to each other.
you
You
about
don't
3
need
days?
you don't need A E. Stop it.
What about some umlauts?
Nuh-uh. Cut it out. Even though they're pronounced wrong, like almost defiantly pronounced wrong in this
True.
book. Like Rebecca knows how they're supposed to be pronounced, and she was like, nuh-uh, not here, not in the world of my
Navarre.
right. God. Oh, another great quote is when some uh, Violet is in like 17 like anxiety panic inducing scenarios in just this first chapter when she shows up to the college. Like everything that happens, she's like, oh my god, is this it for me? Am I going to die? And it's like, no, bitch, it's the first chapter and you're the main character.
She doesn't know that. I would be having the exact same response. I think I'm gonna spend my whole life happy and content, talking to no one, reading books and writing down notes, and then all of a sudden, my mom is like, "By the way, I'm sending you to your death right now. Have fun. Bye-bye." I would be I would be doing the Feyre thing and just puking my guts out. Easy.
Yeah, but also like because this book is in first person, which by the way, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of first person books. I'm sick of
Yeah.
hearing I'm sick of hearing uh like the quirky like so cute girl monologue in her head where she thinks she's being funny and quirky, and it's like I'm
Hate it.
begging you to shut the fuck up. Violet is a big head talker, and she has nothing valuable to say ever in her head.
It's always one-word sentences, usually "fucking asshole" or "what a piece of shit" or "bastard." Like, it's literally the most asinine like, every time I see it in the book, I highlight it and I write in all capital letters, "Hey, stop that.
Stop.
We
Cut it
we
out.
don't Need this.
Um, but it was in one of the stressful scenarios. I don't remember which one, but the quote is, "As panic fists my heart," and I was like, "That's not an appropriate usage of the term fists."
Like, right through with one of the ventricles, like, just up in
Yeah,
the aorta?
like, are you purposely trying to invoke a certain kind of imagery? Because that's what the word fists does.
Yeah. She
Um,
has a lot of those. There's another one later that I'm gonna draw focus to,
good.
but
Like
I think
we've gotta, we've gotta.
we must, because why else are we reading this book if not to do just that?
Yeah, we. This is the reason for the season,
Mhm,
to overly talk about stuff that no one probably cares about but us.
mhm.
But anyway, uh, she does in fact see Zayden, who I thought was spelled Zayden, and then I find out later it's spelled the worst possible way.
I
X,
think I think well, Zayden is really bad also, though. Like, I think that's even worse than the X.
just the word is bad. The name
Yeah.
itself, like the sounds, regardless of the letters used, are bad. Those are
It's
not
giving
words.
frat boy.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really, because he's really a deep, sensitive boy on the inside.
That remains to be seen.
You know it's coming.
I
I
know.
like we haven't gotten to that point, but we've read this book before.
I know eventually he's gonna be like, "I was only mean to you because I needed to push you away from
Yeah,
me.
I'll do
I'm the
anything
one
for you.
I'm the one." Never mind, we'll get to it. But that's, I think, basically all of chapter 1. She's getting ready to cross the parapet with her homies, and
Yes. Um. Okay. Chapter 2.
it's a short one.
Thank God.
Not a lot happens.
Yeah, I don't have many notes for it personally. Um. One of them, like a common theme early on, like in the first 4 to 5 chapters, is that Violet will not shut up about how much she does not want to be there.
Yeah. I don't find that egregious, though. I wouldn't
No,
wanna be there either.
it's early, but also she's really flip floppy about it. Where she'll be like, "I don't want to be here. I wanted to be in this like scribes college or whatever." But then she gets like really into the like the politics, the societal politics of all the other students, and it's like, well, make up your mind. You like it
Yeah.
here or not?
Yeah. I don't know, I kind of understand the waffling though, because 'cause you're like, I'm not supposed to be here, but part of me feels like I should be. I have no choice. Might as well make the best of it, but
Yeah.
if things get tough, be like, "Well, my out is that I'm not supposed to be here, so it doesn't matter if I do bad, but if I do bad, I'll die." So there's kind of a lot going on internally for her, but the way that she deals with it is by reciting historical facts when she's feeling anxious at, like, the top of her lungs, because several times people are like, "Are you studying right now?" And it's like, you can't just say that in your head like a
Yeah,
normal person.
babe, just tell us, like, say that in your head, like you already tell us all the other dumb shit that's floating around in there. Why not
Mhm.
just say that inside? Sometimes things are you should keep things in.
She never does, though, and I don't think she ever will, 'cause part of her charm. But
If you want to
she
call it that.
she makes these 2 friends, Rhiannon and Dylan dies immediately. He takes
Yeah,
one step, and he'll never see his wedding day,
yeah. With
and
like a
it's
classic
very
like
sad.
Looney Tunes, ahoy! And you're just like, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, that's too bad.
Yeah, he's never thought about or spoken about again.
which is
And
another running theme in this book, is that death, like, you can make, like, your best friend can die, and the reaction is, oh no! Anyway.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. Rhiannon and her basically get across because Violet traded one of her, like, Gore-Tex hiking boots with Rhiannon's, like, ballet flat, and so they each had, like, one good shoe and one bad shoe, and I will say I enjoy that even though Violet is kind of like the next evolution of a pick-me, I appreciate that she has some female friends. She still, in some ways, feels like a girl's girl, and I respect that about her.
I
So,
do
she's
not
looking out for her girlfriends, and I
to
think that's great.
Violet's credit. Uh Her score on the proverbial, like, pick me Richter scale is lower than normal,
Yeah, it's true.
which is impressive in this kind of book.
We're in the phase of, like, literature now, though, where the entire world will make it so they have no choice but to pay attention to our main female character, though. So she doesn't have to be a pick me because
Yeah.
everybody's obsessed with her, and it's, like, not even her fault.
Yeah. Wait, I mean, I don't like it. I don't like it. That's not how you tell a story. Not everybody can be the chosen one.
No. We meet her, like, second mortal enemy, though. This guy who just his name's Jack Barlow. He randomly decides that he is going to be the one to kill her,
Yeah.
simply because he's behind her in the conga line going across the parapet. That's it. He is the living embodiment of this action, and
Yeah.
at one point, he literally does it to
Yeah,
her.
it's great. It's also, this is the moment where I had a big uh-oh moment, because the audiobook reader, her male voice is bad.
Oh, no.
It's like this. Violet, what are you doing? Hurry up.
What?
I'm gonna kill you. You're next in line for me to beat you up. And it's like, no. Oh no. And her dragon voice. Uh-oh. It's so like, the choices that this reader made are interesting. I personally wouldn't have made those choices.
Well, what are you gonna do except be at the mercy of this person for the next half
Ah,
of the book?
only 12 more hours to go.
I think that's it for chapter 2, though. Jack decides
Yeah.
she's gonna die at his hands. She does make it across the parapet.
Only just.
Barely makes it.
Okay, chapter 3. I don't actually remember what happens in this chapter because they all kind of blurred together for me.
That's fair. Violet makes it across the parapet. She's banged up her knee. This is
Yeah.
the first instance we see of her dealing with her joint issues,
Oh, yeah.
etc. She's so weak, so frail, needs a man to be providing comfort and safety and protection for her at all times. Oh, and it just so happens one of such men is right here to save the day. Dane with an I.
Babe, don't
The
worry.
last in the last year went from attractive and cute to gorgeous.
Whoa.
His whole personality is just being like, "Damn it, Violet!"
Yeah.
And that's the only thing he says. And Violet, her knee is all fucked up. She's about to puke all over this hallway.
Right.
But unlike Feyre, she keeps her shit together.
For now.
And Dane brings her up to the rider's quadrant to like mend her knee. So like the whole thing is like if you get injured, you don't want anybody to know because they're gonna like kill you for it, basically. And
This
she
makes
doesn't.
no sense.
I know.
This whole aspect of the college makes no sense. Why? First of all, why are the other students so dead set on murdering each other? I understand that there's limited slots. There's only so many dragons. But also, like, killing each other seems like, why don't they just, like, wash them out? Ah, you're not good enough. Sorry, go home.
Well, and it seems like killing them is, like, just, like, part of the experience. Like, they'll be sparring together and someone will just snap someone's neck and they're like, "Well, all right." And then they just carry on with their day. It's like,
It's so weird. And, like, there's no and, like, everybody's hostilities are immediately at, like, a 10. And it's like, but this is so ridiculous. This does not make sense.
it's so wild because it's like she's, like, trying to bring some Hunger Games element into this
Mm,
college,
yeah, you're
but
right.
at the same
That's
time,
exactly it.
they're not all fighting. Like, the object of the game is to bond with a dragon and go be a rider, but you don't have to kill other people in order to have that relationship with a dragon. You
Right.
either do or you don't. If less people are around, sure, maybe you have a better chance, but I feel like the trauma bonds in Hunger Games are stronger than the ones here. Like, you should just be
Yeah, because you can't trust anybody in this school.
I don't know, it feels very forced, like, all of this,
Yeah.
like, mortal enemies, "I'm gonna kill you for no reason," like, it's just a bunch of, like, young adult sociopaths that they're all so murder hungry
Yeah,
immediately,
everybody really wants to kill somebody else.
but especially Violet.
Yeah, everybody wants her dead for some reason because she's so weak and frail. She needs a big, strong man.
Yeah, and she's gonna be a liability to the riders if she lives. Anyways,
I don't know where this word came from. I forgot, but I wrote it down because I said this sounds like a joke. But it was the word Gormphalius.
what?
I don't remember what part it was in, but I just remember hearing Gormphalius, and I was like, "That's not real. That's not a real
Oh,
word. What are you talking about? What is the?
do you remember
Don't.
any context?
No, I don't. I just remember hearing the word Gormphalius and going, "Someone did not. Are we sure that you did? No one tell you that like that's a phallus word?
Oh my god.
There's phallus in that word. Did no one tell you, or is that on purpose?"
Speaking of phallus words, one crucial detail we forgot to mention, when Mira was training Violet or repacking her backpack to walk across the parapet,
Oh yeah.
she's she's like, "Just so you know, I know a guy who can make things that are small really big, if you catch my meaning."
Oh, I blocked that out. I forgot about that. You're right. And
Crucial
then
plot
she was like,
detail.
"Oh, is that all? What can he make smaller?" And I was like, "That's not the natural progression of that joke, Violet."
Um,
I also wrote down that like so much of the dialogue in this book comes across as like that really obnoxious like MCU style like so that just happened where they're
yeah,
like
it's true.
everybody's kind of saying like something snarky that's just really like no one asked you, like please be quiet.
Yeah, a lot of Violet's inner monologue is essentially just that.
And like once she gets her dragon it's even worse.
It's so much worse, but Dane brings her up to the Riders Quadrant to, like, look at her knee in private so that nobody can know how easily breakable she is,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Well, just so you know, this is the 2nd year's floor. You're not supposed to be here." And she's like, "Oh, don't worry. If anyone sees us, I'll say I was overcome with lust and couldn't wait another second to get you out of your pants." Just and then I'm
Great.
like, "Does that mean that this is allowed?" And she goes, "I can throw in a few, 'Oh, Dane cries' once we're in your room just for believability." And then the after part of that sentence is, "And I actually mean it." She doesn't say that out loud. She's thinking that to herself. And it's like, yeah,
Who asked?
okay. The vibe of everybody at this school when they first get there is very much the, like, Aylwin Abernathy school of thought of, "I came here to fuck," and that's everybody.
Yeah. Or the like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. She's called Baron. She's from the Baronies.
Yeah.
Like everybody is like padding their body count. Even though
Yeah.
everybody here has the most nuclear like radiating virgin energy.
Well, and, like, where make it make sense because they're all, like, super hostile wanting to kill each other, and meanwhile, everyone's pairing off and fucking. You can't do both things at the same time.
Yeah.
You cannot
You gotta
be
pick
like,
one.
"We're about to murder everybody at this school," and then get naked with them and let them do stuff to you, like
Unless you want to go down like a really sinister path. But I don't think Rebecca Yarros was aiming for that with this. Like you
No.
can do that. It would just be that would be a dark book.
Yeah.
And
Like,
she doesn't
how
have
is
the guts.
no, and, like, how is the vibe, like, we could die at any day, so we better, live hard and fast and
Yeah, live hard, fuck
drink
harder.
yeah, drink the sweet nectar of life, but then also be like, the reason that we could all die at any moment is because we're just gonna kill each other for no reason?
Yeah, can you imagine like splitting someone in half and then afterwards being like, watch your fucking back out there tomorrow? Damn, okay. I didn't think it was that bad, but
It's truly a dichotomy that would not exist for humans.
oh, this chapter has my favorite line in the book.
Oh.
It like, dear reader, this shit makes no sense. I had to when I first heard it, I nearly had a stroke. I had to rewind the audiobook and listen to it back, and then it still didn't make sense. So I listened to it back again 3 more times. Then I had to write it down. And this is after I think they had traded Boots back. Her and Rhiannon had traded Boots back. And
Yes.
um this is an actual quote. The quote is that Rhiannon was putting her boot back on, quote, lacing it as quickly as I do the same as mine, end quote.
That's so horrid.
And let me say that one more time. Lacing it as quickly as I do the same as mine. It's been a long time, dear reader, that I've heard a sentence as devastatingly dog shit as that.
Yeah,
That is horrendous.
bleak.
Like, there's the correct way to format this sentence, by the way, if you don't know. Not in a derogatory way, but, language is hard. The correct way to format this sentence would have been lacing it as quickly as I do mine.
Easy.
Bing, bish, bash, bosh. Like, why are you adding like 6 other words? Oh boy. Also, in that scene where she's like basically sexually harassing Dane,
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, is this gonna be like Violet is a sexual predator, but it's laughed off because she's a girl? But I think her just doing that is the worst of it so far.
I think she's just, like,
A
really
weird.
she's
She's
really bad at flirting. Like, she does it in a way that is just, like, makes you wanna evaporate through the
yeah,
wall
it's
into the
very
next room.
off-putting.
'Cause she'll immediately make sexual comments, or not necessarily sexual comments, but, like, she'll bring flirting into the social dynamic when that was never on the table.
Yeah, it's like opening the door on a hot summer day when the air conditioner's on. Like you're letting all the cold air out.
Yeah.
Close the fucking door. And she always does it in the worst. Like there's just no riz,
Negative Riz.
and she thinks she's being slick too. and everyone
Yeah,
just, and like even in the book she says this kind of shit, and it's the meme of the girls all looking back at you like, who turned on that music?
yeah, it's so true.
um
She goes like I think he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see our time apart hasn't dulled your tongue." And she's like, "Oh, there's a lot of things I can do with my tongue." And
no
it's
one
like,
asked.
"Relax."
Be cool, it's your first day here. It's
It's
your
her
first day.
first hour here. She just crossed over into the college, and she's already getting into trouble. And then Dane spends the rest of this chapter and the rest of his life trying to convince Violet to go back to the scribe quadrant, and
Yeah,
he
you won't
thinks
cut it here.
she's going to die every second of every day.
Everybody
And
wants
he
to
does
kill you.
it in the most annoying way ever. He's just always like, "Damn
Yeah,
it."
like he does. It's never explicitly said in the book, but the vibe is very much like when like men grab the tricep of a woman and just like hold it. He gives off that kind of energy. It's
Yeah, he
very
does.
it's very Atlas from Not Like It Ends With Us.
Yeah.
Like big
Yeah.
big tricep grabbing energy.
Yeah, nice guy TM energy.
Yeah. Oh, this is also where Rebecca drops the name of a group of dragons, and I laughed out loud.
What name of the group of dragons?
So you guys know that a group of crows is called a murder, or a group of wolves is called a pack,
A gaggle of
a
geese.
gaggle of geese. Well, a group of dragons is called a riot.
I blocked that out.
A riot of dragons.
Huh?
Boo!
Why would you do that?
Boo!
My favorite part of this chapter, though, is we get a glimpse of the rebels, and the way it's described, it's just like her idea of what cool and edgy people look like is
Yeah.
like JoJo Siwa's Karma video.
Oh
Like
my
it's
god.
everybody, it's the JoJo Siwa school of edginess because the way she describes one girl, she's like, "Oh, she's got half shaved pink hair." Whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
and her tribal tattoos.
Like they're all described as essentially like the cast from Sons of Anarchy. Just standing
Yeah.
there like this.
Yeah, with, like, just muscles.
Yeah, just like looking tough and like spitting on the ground and like intent like purposely knocking over a trash can as they walk by it, and like flipping off like the security cameras at the shopping mall like, fuck you.
The amount of fucking flipping people off in this book is so
It's
upsetting.
very juvenile.
It's literally, like, parts where it's like, I give him my middle finger. It's literally line by line what happens in the beautiful, most, like, gorgeous fan fiction of all time, My Immortal. Anytime something happens to the
Oh
main
my
character,
god. It's
to
so
Ebony,
true.
Raven, Darkness, Dementia, Raven way.
Yeah.
And it's like I put up my middle finger at him,
Yeah.
and that's violent to everyone.
I can't believe that's exactly who she, it's so crazy. Because someone's like, "Oh my gosh." In my immortal it, someone would just be like, "Oh, hey Ebony Darkness," and she's like, "Fuck you." And there's so many points in this book where someone's like, "Violet, you shouldn't do that. You might get killed." And she's like, "Fuck you. You don't have you don't tell me what to do." And then she's like, "I better not do this. It might get me killed."
And she throws daggers at people because Zayden told her that he thought it would be hot if she did that.
Or she gets nauseous because she's scared.
Yeah. She has a lot going on in her inner world.
Yeah. Also, she's just a. I don't have any money. I'm just a little baby. I could pay you in blocks.
Yeah, that's very her. I'm just so small and frail.
All right, that's chapter 3. I think.
Wait,
I
wait.
think. Wait,
There's
no.
one last thing I need to draw attention to in chapter 3, where it's basically a plagiarism of the opening scene from Skyrim, but a bit of a mashup, where like Xaden is in the courtyard with everybody. Oh no, okay, a whole bunch of shit happens. So we find out 67 cadets did not make it across the parapet. So 67 people died hour one. Then they all go to this courtyard and they find out that like Dane has taken her and her friend into his like wing or whatever, and his section is under someone else's wing. He's a squad leader. There's a wing leader above him. They
Right.
find out they're being moved to Zayden's squad to fourth wing. And like, of course they are. And then Zayden's like eyeing her from across the courtyard, like he's gonna, like he wants to kill her. And she starts running away. And then we learn about how dragons need humans in order to develop signet abilities from the bonding and weave the protective wards they do around Navarre. So, because the reason that they bond with humans is because they like to protect the Vale, which is like their home, and it's a valley behind Basgiath. Basgiath.
Basquiat.
The dragons call home from merciless griffins. And then they do their Skyrim plagiarism scene where one cadet, because like some dragons just fly in and start fucking up the stones, and some kid just has a total panic response and starts running away screaming, and then a dragon burns him to a crisp. And it's very similar to the beginning of Skyrim in
Yeah.
that you're about to be executed, and I know the dragon doesn't kill you, but the one person who's about to be executed freaks out and starts running
Right, and
away,
he gets shot by the
shot with
arrow.
an arrow, and then the dragon comes down and starts blowing fire everywhere.
Yeah.
It was very Skyrim coded. And then
Every
other
time,
cadets start peeing their pants.
every time I think of that scene from Skyrim, I think of the mod that changed all the dragons into Macho Man Randy Savage dragons. So every
Oh,
time I think of that, I think of the dragon that jumps on top of the tower, and it's like, oh yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Thomas the Tank Engine.
No, Macho Man Randy Savage dragons are way better,
True.
especially when they're like way off in the distance, and you just
Mhm.
hear, oh yeah, yeah.
That's the end of chapter 3.
Okay, uh, chapter 4. My first note, which with just the tiniest amount of research was proven wrong. But my first note for chapter 4 was this academy reeks of someone who has never been to college.
Mm.
But Rebecca Yarros has been to college, and she has 2 degrees, I believe. And it's like,
Indeed.
if that's the case, did you not go out? Did you just stay inside?
What specifically about it made you feel that way?
It does not feel like any kind of institute for an education of any kind.
It's a war college.
That you have to teach people war at a war college. They have
Yeah.
military academies and they teach you stuff. But here they're just like, oh, you just got here? How come you don't have your own dragon, huh? And it's like, I just got here!
They have lessons and bunks, and it's described as a very beautiful, like, marble floors, domed glass ceilings,
Yeah,
beautiful
it's just Hogwarts.
institution. Yeah, fully, but everybody wants to kill each other and then also fuck.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody is Draco except for Violet,
who's Harry?
who's just a little baby who doesn't know any better.
She was told by her sister that she needs to be wearing her armor at all times. So she sleeps in it. She they're in communal bunks for now because they're like first years. It's not until they actually become a rider or not that they get private
Right.
rooms. So they're just
Also, dear reader, leather is not armor.
leather with dragon scales sewn into it is.
even still,
No one
a
you
dagger
see
can go right through that.
no one can see the outline of your body in heavy plate armor, though.
Do you want to be hot or safe?
Hot.
Okay, well,
Duh.
not me. I'm going to sleep in fucking full plate,
Chain
baby.
chainmail with the hood up.
Yeah. You're not gonna get me, motherfuckers.
I think this chapter is the one where we find out okay, Dane's calling her with his little bird call like he's Dickon from The Secret Garden, and, she's like, "Oh my god, that's his call for me," and they, like, meet up, and Dane's like, "Oh, good, no one tried to screw with you last night," and Violet's like, "Would it be so bad if someone did?" And then they have a little conversation about Dane's special signet power, and it's secret, and we find out there's classified signet powers that would make somebody good to, like, work in the intelligence sector or whatever when he graduates from dragon school.
Like
He
reading minds?
except that he's just kind of similar, though. He can see people's recent memories if he touches them. So it is kind of like mind reading, but there's a bit more control.
That's really dumb.
I know, it's kind of like
It's
it
entirely useless because what if you like meet them past like if you're say you're a spy
yeah.
and they're like we need to find out what this guy was up to in the last 24 hours and he's like, "Well, I got bad news. It only works in the last 15 minutes." And they're like, "Okay, you've wasted a signet power."
You just gotta make sure he's right there when
Yeah.
things are happening
Like
as it's happening,
be-
or gets there right after it happens every time.
become an accomplice to his criminal activities in order to find out what he did.
Yeah.
Uh, but reading or like reading memories is also not the dumbest signet power that we come across in the bit that we
True.
read.
Very true. But
Not even close.
I did think it's kind of fun that there are some classified signet powers. Some people get to be real special boys and girls.
Do
That I
you do you think that at some point in this series, because I recall Rebecca saying like, it's gonna be 5 books.
oh,
Do you think at some point there will be some kind of signet power that makes other people horny? Or is
I think
that too on the nose?
that's just like what happens to everybody when Violet walks into the room.
Oh, so
That's
true.
kind of her
So
like
true.
unintended signet power.
So true.
I think that's pretty much all of chapter 4, though. Xaden, like,
Yeah.
makes them from across the courtyard, being like, "I know your parents are tight, but do you 2 have to be so fucking obvious?" And I feel like later in the book, we're gonna find out that he was, like, really jealous of them the whole time, be like, "I couldn't stand to watch you, my fated mate," or whatever, like,
Oh no. I
deal
imprinted
with
on you.
yeah, like, I feel like that's gonna be the vibe we get. I think we're gonna have an imprinting situation on our hands.
There was also we had a bit of a debate because I have a note here where we had a bit of a debate because and it's so typical of this kind of book that we just assumed that Violet was absolutely stacked with massive knockers.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but upon research, like her titties are never mentioned. They
They're
are
they're mentioned as a body part, but not being, like
like look at how like these things are swanging, bud.
yeah. So,
Um,
I don't know, are we like, maybe we're just preverts.
could be, but these books do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you get trapped into being like, "Oh, so skinny, so frail, G cup titties."
Yeah, because I my note is it must be so hard being so big tittied and so frail.
Just, like, so top
No
heavy at all times.
wonder, no wonder your joints are in shambles, babe. Those titties are 30 pounds each.
Yeah, I think the only mention of it is, like, she mentions that she has breasts as something is being pulled over them,
Yeah,
and that's it. But we're just so conditioned to believe that if breasts are mentioned,
Yeah, and
they are.
is it a crime to enjoy big titties? Then lock me up, brother.
Same.
All right. Okay. Chapter 5. And my first note of this chapter is this is woefully boring at the moment.
Oh, good.
And uh I don't remember what happens in this chapter.
Well, it's the thing that you were saying does not exist at this college, and it's a lesson. They're having their first battle brief
Oh,
lesson.
right.
So they're in a gigantic lecture hall and they're talking about a recent piece of intelligence that they just received. And the professor is talking about how their eastern wing was attacked the previous night. And Violet, the smartest girl in the world, is feeding Rhiannon questions to ask so she doesn't draw attention to herself. But
Right.
the professor finds out immediately and is like, ask your own questions next time, Cadet Sorengale. And then everybody knows who she is. And
Ooh.
the question she asks is at, what altitude the village was at, and the questions they're asking are, like, pretty basic questions. The things you would ask when you find out something was attacked, and then Xaden asks the big boy, this is why he's a wing leader, ladies and gentlemen, says the professor questions like, "What was the condition of the village after it was attacked?"
Bad.
Because well, they're like, they didn't just do rampant destruction, and they're clearly, like, looking for something, and so someone was like, "Oh, well, they don't have any, like, exports or gems or mines or anything, so what could they be looking for?" And Violet is, like, having small panic attacks over this, like, idea that these wards are failing, and it's like, what do you think the existence of the college is for? Why do you think you are learning how to be a dragon riding person? It's because things like this are clearly happening because we are at perpetual war with griffins or whatever.
Yeah, which is a point that, like, only now they're kind of alluding to there being an enemy. Like,
Yeah.
oh, an actual war is never mentioned. They're not like, ooh, the such and such empire is pushing against our lines. They're just like, the village was attacked. And it's like, by who?
Yeah, like, are people riding these griffins, or is it just, like, griffins?
Yeah, is it just like the wild griffin like society who's pissed?
Like, there's gotta be people,
Like
but
one of my notes is why are so many dragon riders dying? Is there a war on? And like it's only vaguely alluded to,
oh,
at
okay,
least in this point.
the Eastern Wing experienced an attack last night near the village of Chakir by a drift of bravey griffins with riders. So they do have riders,
Okay.
but we don't hear about the people. We only hear about griffins.
Yeah, it's
Like, we
only
don't know
the
anything about the society that they're at this supposed war against, which
which
I guess can
tells
be argued
me
away that, like, oh, they're at the college doesn't really matter yet. But wouldn't they be fucking devoting all of their studies to understanding their enemy?
you'd think. Also, what better propaganda than this group of people hate you and they want you dead. They don't want your way of life to exist. It's the classic like militaristic society propaganda of this group of people wants to destroy your way of life and they want you dead. Instead, they're just
Yeah.
like these griffins. They make it sound like they're hornets.
Yeah.
These griffins turned up to the town of who gives a shit and knocked around a bunch of shit.
Yeah. It's so weird, but it's what you would expect from a book like
But
this.
it also leaves it open for the big reveal in like book 3 where they're like, "Oh, the Griffin Riders are actually the good guys."
Do we think that Rebecca Yarros would actually do that?
Yeah, because it's in Game of Thrones or excuse me, not Game of Thrones, Hunger Games.
Mm, true.
And all of these like big popular books these days are just like taken wholesale from other things.
That's a good point.
But
I
anyway,
think I think the only other thing that happens in this chapter is she goes to her first sparring fight where
whoa,
Jack breaks a dude's neck immediately, and then Violet gets put in the ring with Buff Jojo Siwa, who breaks her shoulder, and this
yeah,
is where we find Rebecca's very strange relationship with the word macabre,
yeah, her
where
incorrect relationship with it.
she's I mean, in the group of chapters we've read, she's mentioned it 2 times, both very weird. The phrase it's used in this instance is the macabre sound of breaking bones.
Yeah,
What?
uh, no,
Like, macabre is a mood, it's an aesthetic, it's a vibe, it's not
a
how to
verb.
just yeah, it's not how you describe a sound.
It's macabre is not a descriptor. It's not an adjective, not an adverb. It's sort of a genre.
Mhm.
Um, I hate it.
It was very strange. I was like, "Do you just not understanding the connotation that most people use this word in?"
Did an editor see that and go, hmm, nice?
We'll never know.
Oh, I made a very sarcastic note about how did you know cadets train their whole lives for this? Because that's something that's said like 80 goddamn times.
Yeah, some
All of
people
the
come
like
from
all of the people in like slightly higher up positions are like, what, watch your tone. People train their whole lives to be in your position, so watch it.
calm down, everybody.
I'm begging you to chill. It's not as serious as that. But anyway, chapter 6. I believe the at the end of chapter 5, Violet gets hurt. Like all of her fucking like every joint in her body is like exploded. She can barely move.
It's like her shoulder gets, like, pulled out of its socket pretty much, I
Yeah.
think.
And I thought it was very funny because after she receives this like injury in like a fight, after they've established so hard, they've hammered into our skulls so far that you can't trust anyone in this college. Everyone wants you dead, and they will kill you if you turn your back on them. And then suddenly she gets hurt, and it's like in Harry Potter when Harry was like had his like arm turned to rubber, and the whole school comes to his bedside like, "Oh my God, Harry, are you okay?"
Yeah.
Everybody comes to Violet's bedside like, "Oh my gosh, are you gonna be all right, Violet?"
I don't think they visit her, like, in the hospital, though. I think,
There's
like,
like
doesn't
three people that do, and
oh, I
two
thought
of
it was
them
just
and two of them
Dane.
were people who actively were like, "Watch your back, bitch."
Oh.
And it's
'Cause
like, make up your minds. Is this Hogwarts or like Death Race?
well, I know, like, Dane takes her to the healers, and he's trying to convince them there's, like, healers, which are, like, medicine-focused individuals, and then
Right.
there's menders who can do magic, and she has, like, a mender on call, like, she's got this person's business card in her wallet because she's been getting mending from him for the last 5 years anytime she, like, sprains an ankle doing book stuff,
Very
and
upper middle class.
Dane just keeps trying to convince the menders not to mend her and put her arm in a sling so that she has no choice but to go join the scribes. And then she takes some kind of like painkiller drug that makes her slur her words for the next 4 pages.
Oh, I
Though
forgot about that.
the consonant repetition is so egregious. But honestly, I'm like, I would almost bet my life on the statement that nobody actually comes like, it's just healers and menders that are at the hospital.
Maybe because it
Oh, Rhiannon comes in, though. Okay.
her only friend.
Her only friend. She falls asleep.
Yeah,
Um,
and then we're treated to a much too long sequence where she's like, just why don't you go anywhere? I'm fine. It's like, oh my god, this is a joke that has gone on too long.
yeah, it's so bad, but really the only thing of importance that happens during this chapter is that while Violet was in the hospital, Mira snuck in and put her brother's journal under her pillow. And it was like this instructional diary that Brennan wrote for Mira
Oh
when she
right.
started at Dragon School. And it's basically just like step by step a guide on how not to get killed there.
So
But
helpful.
the main thing he writes in this one is like, "You survived parapet, good." And then it gives her details on where instructors meet so you can, like, sneak in and see the posting of who your next opponent is so that you can learn what they look like and what their weaknesses are before you fight them. So that's kind of like her marching orders for how to survive for the next little while.
Right.
She finds out how to go find where the instructors meet and just, like, read lists,
Yeah, to cheat.
prepare accordingly. Yeah, but that's all of chapter 6.
uh her brother Brennan is bizarre to me because there's so much sprinkled throughout where she'll just like offhandedly mention like, oh, this is the last place Brennan had breakfast before he died, and it's like, who gives a shit? That's the dragon that he was riding when he fell off and died. Okay, that's the last person who saw him before he died. Shut up. I don't
He
like this
has
guy.
Why? 'Cause he's dead?
No, just because she keeps bringing him up. I would have felt sorry for your dead brother, but you're really rubbing it in.
Well, I mean, she's back at the place where he went to school. She'd never seen where he went to school. Just learning about how he also cheated.
Yeah, very popular amongst the Sorengales to cheat, apparently.
Well, and I think the main thing we know about him is that he was really good at strategy, just strategizing everything. So good at
Yeah,
it.
of course.
So smart.
Something who that like in a lot of these books, especially the ones that are geared more towards like young adults, and this one, where it's clear that the author does not have a firm grasp on like actual battle tactics and strategy. So they're just like, he was a mastermind strategist. And it's like, but what does that mean?
He like thought stuff. And he was really good at it.
What does that mean? Is he really good at like planning out a battle? Like,
His
oh, the
notion
cavalry
board
will come this way, and then we'll move in with the infantry after them. It's like, no, that's just boring battle plan stuff. He's so good at strategy. You just don't even understand. You wouldn't get
his notion boards are so organized. His
it.
his project trackers updated. He
Honestly,
knows
his like
exactly what's coming next.
yeah, his product layout is like, wait till you see the roadmap for this product timeline. It's masterful.
So strategic. He really thought everything through. All the deliverables are represented here.
Okay. Chapter Semen. Like, Rebecca really wants us to understand just how lethal this college is.
Right.
She won't shut up about it. And I made a note of like, truly, I don't understand what makes this college so lethal. Like, why is it like this?
Cliffs.
Why? Why did they set this precedent? Why are they allowing students to kill each other? Wouldn't you want more hands?
Only the most ruthless, talented people are allowed to straddle the back of a dragon and ride it into battle.
Ugh. And like, I think in this chapter, Violet actually like meets Xaden.
It's their first conversation.
Yeah, they actually like interact for the first time. And it made me laugh because after their conversation, because he's like his bad boy self. He's like, fuck you and whatever you stand for. You better listen to me and everything I do, or else you're not gonna make it and you'll be dead. And then she like resents him for that. She's like, ooh, he was rude to me. I don't like him no more.
Well, she is out poison foraging. She's getting some berries so
Oh, yeah.
she can poison her first opponent. She took breakfast shift as one of her duties. She's like, "I've been keeping scribe hours for years. I'm always up an hour early." So her whole plan to not die in the ring is to just find out who her opponents are and then poison them different ways so that no one will catch on what she's doing. So she's, like, gathering little berries in a tree, and then she sees all these, like, hooded bad boys start appearing under the tree she's in, and she's like, "Oh my god, who are these guys?" And it turns out it's Xaden and 2 of his friends, and then 2 more of his friends, and then a bunch of them are there. And she's like, "Oh my god, gatherings of more than 3 rebels kids are illegal." But she's like, "What kind of sinister things could they be planning?" But they're just having a little support group meeting of being like, "Okay, whose grades are bad? Who needs extra personal training at the gym? What's going on?" And then everyone's like, "Xaden, what about that Sorengale girl? You gonna fuck her up?" And he does the whole Bill, fucking from True Blood being like, "Sucky is mine," like, with with Violet,
Yeah, my favorite. Suck here
and
belongs to me.
yeah, like, that's literally the attitude he brings. I'm like, "Fair enough." And then she waits for them all to leave, and she, like, slinks down, and then all of a sudden, she's pinned against this very hard chest, and he's like,
Whoa.
don't even think about moving." And she goes, "Oh my god, I like, don't tell me, let me guess, you could smell my perfume." That's always what gives the heroine away in books. And the whole exchange is basically Xaden being like, "Are you gonna tell on us?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, great. Bye." And she says his voice is like rough velvet against her skin. And then he says something to her that's like, "You look all frail and breakable, but you're really a violent little thing, aren't you?"
Oh.
And she tries throwing daggers at him. And he we find out his signet power is like being a shadow daddy. And his shadow daddy like vapors catch the daggers or pull them out from the tree that she sunk them in. And she's like, "Oh my god." And then this quote is like, "I hate how beautiful he is, how lethal his abilities make him as he strides towards me, shadows curling around his footsteps. He's like one of those poisonous flowers I've read about from the Cygnus forests to the east." That's not the first or only time she's gonna compare him to a poisonous plant.
It's so embarrassing that this was like written down.
And everyone's supposed to be like, "Oh, fetch the smelling salts, I've got the vapors."
It's insane. Like, just because I have been talking to you about this book, uh, and like listening to the audiobook, my phone has been listening. So my TikTok feed is full of some very embarrassing girlies who have like their own podcast talking about theories, and I'm like, gang, there's only 2 books. Please wait until there's more.
Yeah. I was about to ask, are the ones you're getting, like, when the girlies are explaining literary tropes in these books where it's like, "Show me what it means when his eyes darkened," and so they show, like, video footage of men in movies whose eyes darken.
No, and thank God for it because I would have ended it. I would have ate a bullet. That sounds horrendous. I hate
ended your
I
life over that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would have been a worthy um ending. But I hate, truly, I cannot stand the discussion around tropes.
I know.
I think it's ruining the way people are reading books.
That's what the robust filtering system on archiveofourown.com is for.
Yeah,
If
if you're
tropes are
that
your
hard up.
thing, like if you need a trope, go to the fan fictions because they will give you what you need. Just say you don't like to read books and you just want to read fan fiction. That's okay.
Yeah.
Follow your bliss, you know?
And they're
But
free.
don't bring that to books. I don't want tropes in the table of contents, the books that I'm reading. That's why it's a book.
And there's like such a crazy marketing push, especially from like indie authors, where they're like explaining the tropes in their books, effectively spoiling the book.
Yeah.
Like when you say, "Oh, this book has enemies to lovers," you're spoiling it.
Mhm.
I hate enemies to lovers. I think it's tired. It needs to go. It's gotta go.
Well, I think the problem with enemies, quote unquote enemies to lovers in a lot of stories is that it's never that they're like to establish people as enemies, but also have them meet during the timeline that your book is happening in. It makes everything feel so forced and so contrived. It's like, how are you going to just be
Yeah.
instant enemies and then soften towards each other? And
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I feel like a lot of authors really overcompensate with the enemies piece where they do the showing instead of telling us, where we just get these really cringy inner monologues of like fucking asshole or I fucking hate this guy, but for no reason other than the fact that like your mom was responsible for his dad dying. And she's always like, oh, this guy's such a piece of shit. He wants to kill me, blah, blah, blah. But he's never been anything but like kind of respectful, even if he's cringy to her. So it like the dots don't connect. And that I
Yeah.
feel like that's so common with any like enemies to lovers situation of, right? So it just ends up being people bickering until they kiss. And I can't stand people bickering for the sake of bickering. I'm like, this
No.
is so boring. Have more control over your emotions. What are you doing?
And nobody wants the slow burn that would be like enemies to lovers would need multiple books.
Yeah, have them hate each other for the first book. The
But
whole first book.
the trope girlies don't want that. They want satisfaction now.
Well, yeah, people hate slow burn, which I don't understand
That's
because
crazy. That's
I love a
crazy.
slow burn. Give me
Yeah.
a slow burn over years and years. Like, I don't know.
Why are you reading like multiple book series if you don't like a slow burn? What's the
Yeah, because
point?
then the only choice at that point is to go the fucking trad wife route with the heroine and have her get married and locked up within
Yeah.
3 books. And it's like, you're an immortal fucking fairy and you're gonna get knocked up mid-flight in book 3?
That's vile. Look,
Actually, I think it's book 4 or
something's
book
wrong
2,
with that
3 and a
woman.
half or something, but
Sarah J. Mass, something's wrong with you. That shit you put in your books is heinous. Like, that's some weird shit.
yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's pretty much all of chapter 7
Yeah.
with the little extra
Yeah, with
ranting.
a little extra English on there. Um I think chapter 8 starts with like Violet making some grotesque comment about people having orgasms.
Yeah, Rhiannon's not in her bunk when she wakes up the next morning, and her thought is, "At least one of us is getting a few much needed orgasms."
Nobody talks like this.
So vile.
No one talks like this.
That's, like, so clinically filthy, and not in a fun way. I'm
No.
like, "Ah, please don't."
That's like, at least someone's getting their colonoscopy when they should. Ugh.
It's so bad.
Ugh. I don't know, like, so much of these early chapters are a blur because it is just a series of conversations that all are kind of the same.
Well, it's a lot of Dane and her having the same conversation over
Yeah,
and over.
where she kind of like talks to one of the other students, and depending on who it is, they're like, don't worry, you can do this, or you better watch your back or I'm gonna kill you, I'll do it. Or she's talking to Dane, who's like doing the Jacob, the yeah, Jacob thing, where he's like, you can't be with him, Bella, he'll ruin your life.
My favorite thing he says is, "Bella, they're not even alive."
Like this,
I'm like, "True, he's got you there."
like the Dane and Zayden is peak Edward and Jacob bullshit. Like
Yeah,
we the young adult world has never recovered from Twilight. They have been trying to meet the standard that Twilight met 20 years ago, and we just can't do it. Look at
you just can't beat Mormon vampires.
no, I mean look, Peeta and Gale,
Yeah, but
Zayden and Dane.
she chose Peeta though, which we love. We love Peeta in this house.
It's a subversion.
We love Baker Boy. Well,
Uh,
Gale just ended up being like a terrorist. Like he was actually fucking awful.
Gaylor.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know actually that much about Hunger Games. I think I watched the movies once.
I recently rewatched all of them,
And
like 2 years ago,
I
I
just
think.
remember the like last two, the like Mockingjay movies where they're in like full rebellion mode.
Mhm.
I just remember the first, like part one, staring at the screen going, what's happening? What is going on?
Like a war.
I get like so much of it was just them like underground talking.
Yeah, planning the resistance, taking down President Snow.
Yeah, sure. Uh Boy, this really paints a very like the fact that we keep going off on tangents is a grim omen.
I think we are simply referencing the material that heavily inspired this book,
Yeah, I suppose.
but things just don't.
Happen.
Things are dragging a lot in these first 10 chapters.
Yeah.
Dane and her are having the same conversation over and over again. Um, Violet starts poisoning her opponent Oren's breakfast with these crushed up berries. She's like, Dane, oh my God, are you asking me about my sex life? It'd be none of your business if you were. And then Dane just keeps going off to Violet about how he just doesn't believe she's capable of this. Then we get dragon lesson time.
Yeah.
And we get the most basic fucking information about how this world has decided to build and classify dragons, and it is simply by the weapon their tail resembles
And also their color.
and their color. But it's like, so you can be color, weapon, tail. And that is the formula for dragons.
Yeah.
And the only ones we know about are dagger, scorpion, club, and the very rare morning star tail. And there's only one type of dragon that has that tail, and it is the black dragon. And there's only one black dragon in rotation with riders at the moment belonging to their fucking like supreme leader or whatever, General Melgrim.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Ooh, smart, discerning, so rare, so special. Only one has been born in the last century." And that was a moment where I was like,
Uh-huh.
"That's gonna be Violet's dragon
Mm-hmm.
for sure. There's no way it's not gonna be."
Yeah, the way that they were really like slathering it on, it's like just so everyone knows, there are no black dragons. They're extremely picky. They're super dangerous. They don't like nobody. Also,
Mhm.
they particularly hate girls who are very fragile and have silver hair. And it's like, okay, well, obviously she's gonna get one.
For sure.
Also,
They all
I recall one line where I was like, what does that mean? Because when they were talking about the black dragons, the like instructor goes, there's no such thing as outsmarting a black dragon. And it's like, okay, well, when would I ever be in a position to try and outsmart one? Why? First of all, why would I need to? Am I, unless I'm playing chess with one, which I think they might be too big.
or in a battle of wits with one, like in The Princess Bride, where it's like,
Yeah.
put the poison in the goblet. You're
How
gonna die against a black dragon every time.
never never engage in a land war in China.
Yeah.
Also, this also brings up another point of like saying things that make no sense and don't matter. This book has Princess Eurolon quotes at the beginning of each chapter, where it's like a quote from a text, an in-world text, and
Right.
oftentimes the quotes are so benign and worthless that they might as well have never been there in the first place.
Can I
It's
find one of my favorites?
yes, please.
Let's see
I started
here.
writing down like joke ones as the book went on.
There's one that's literally from Brennan's journal with an addendum by Violet.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, this one is so stupid though, but it's like, it is my opinion that of all the signet powers writers provide, mending is the most precious, but we cannot allow ourselves to become complacent when in the company of such a signet. For menders are rare and the wounded are not. Major Frederick's modern guide for healers. It's like
Wow, what a haiku.
revolutionary thinking.
Uh, there was one I wrote down later. Yeah, one of them, one of the Princess Eurolon quotes, because they're so dumb. I wrote down because they are inconsequential information.
Mhm.
Like in Dune, when Princess Eurolon did it, it was always kind of like topical to the chapter forthcoming.
Yeah, it had purpose. It belonged there. It added to the story.
Yeah, and these are like, I had breakfast this morning. Princess Eurolon, the year 1421. It's like, who gives a shit? Nobody asked.
Yeah. During this dragon lesson though, they they talk a lot about Zayden's special dragon Scale, I think is how her name is pronounced.
Oh, Segale?
Scale?
I
Scale?
don't know how it's
I
actually
I
pronounced.
I
The
looked up a couple different pronunciations, and it's really similar to how you would say scale, but with a little bit
oh,
more of, like, the consonant sound of the G a little bit before the C.
so
It's
sort of
like
like a bounce, like a
I
scale.
think it's like scale, like a hint of a G,
Right. Okay.
but she's the most powerful dragon of all time.
Yeah. Of course.
Jack's like, "That black dragon's gonna be mine, motherfuckers. You better watch out."
It's so funny to have like the outright, because obviously like Zayden is the bad boy with a heart of gold who is eventually going to have his heart melted by the alluring Violet,
Mhm.
which is the alluring in the room with us now. But like they make Jack this suit like the super villain, and his name's fucking Jack.
Jack Barlow.
the good one is called Zayden, and the bad guy is called Jack?
I
Like,
kind of agree though, some of the worst people are just hiding in plain sight with names like Jack.
that's
You
not
never
true.
know.
That's not true. The greatest man who ever lived, Jack Pat excuse me, John Patrick Ryan.
Who?
Jack Ryan.
Oh, Jack Ryan.
The greatest man who ever lived. Jack Ryan was a Jack.
Well, and actually, I hate that I'm about to make this reference. Jack Pearson from This Is Us. The whole show is based around how good of a guy he was.
I don't know anything about that show.
It's a show with Milo Ventimiglia,
Oh, right. His
and
only
Mandy Moore
other job after Heroes.
after Heroes. He plays like the best guy that's ever lived who died tragically in a house fire when his family was
Mm.
younger.
You know who wouldn't die in a house fire? Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan.
He became
Well,
he became president.
he
Okay.
didn't he didn't die in the fire. He died of smoke inhalation after the fire.
Hmm.
We'll get you.
I suppose. Did he save lives?
He went back in to save a dog.
Okay. It's not a human life, but it's admirable.
This is a side.
Jack would have saved an entire family, but that's just me.
Yeah. I was gonna go on a side tangent, but it would have taken a while. It's not worth it.
Um. Oh
This
yeah.
chapter is actually really meaty. There's quite a
Yeah,
bit
there's
to
a
it.
lot happens because suddenly Rebecca decides that she's sick of writing in real time and like skips weeks and weeks and weeks ahead.
Yes, but even before that, we find out a bit more about the dragons and signet abilities and
Oh,
how they are the result of the unique chemistry between the dragon and the rider. They're usually more particular to the rider. But okay, so the thing that confuses me about all this is that they say like the reason that dragons and humans bond together is so that dragons can channel whatever the signet ability is, right?
yeah.
And but all of these signet abilities compared to teeth, claws, and fire are very bitch.
Yes.
Like, you mean to tell me Scale is gonna be like, "Oh, let me just throw some shadows at you instead of just, like, clawing my way through." Like, what it doesn't give me enough good reason as to why dragons would choose to bond with humans. It doesn't seem like they don't get enough out of it, at least from the information that is available to us at this juncture in the book,
Yeah.
but it's
Also,
very
let me
confusing.
let me let me put this to you. Because the dragons are super picky, also not only are they super picky, but they will kill you on a whim.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, if the magical powers are required to have bonded with a dragon to work or to like develop, with both the dragon and person, why are the dragons indiscriminately killing people and also being super picky?
Well, they don't like the look of some people.
That's fucking crazy. Make it make sense.
It's not gonna.
Yeah,
It's
true.
never gonna.
It's not gonna.
But we
I
learn more about this black dragon, the one who
Oh
has
yeah.
not agreed to bond with anybody since his previous and only rider was killed during this uprising event
Yeah.
that will never be described.
Because she
And
hadn't thought of it yet.
yeah, the rider died because they had this channeling ability to suck energy or magic out of places and put it somewhere else. So he's trying to, like,
Okay.
suck his life force out of himself and give it to a fallen dead rider who we find is out as Brennan. So this guy, like, tried to put his life force into Brennan, and then he died. The black dragon almost died. And I'm like, "Why would you do that?" Maybe they were in love. Maybe they had a little romance going on. But her professor is like, "Violet, after graduation, everybody's gonna be falling over yourselves to be themselves to be your friend because you're General Sorrengail's daughter. Like they're gonna do anything they can. So that's probably why this writer did that. I was like, I think maybe there's more to the story. But he also says, Violet, by the way, you're smarter than both of your siblings. And I'm based on what? Based on one question she asked in one test or in one lesson?
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing has given us, the readers, anything to believe that Violet is above average smart in anything other than recalling historical facts.
No, no, no. Don't you like asking what altitude the attack took place is like, oh my god, how did you know to ask that?
I guess, yeah.
It's like asking a Call of Duty player like what skin do you use? It's like, oh my god, how did you know to ask that? That's so impressive. Are you like, are you single?
Yeah. There's one more thing that happens on this day before we get our time skip,
Oh yeah.
but it's Violet finding like, watching the fruits of her poisoning labor come to fruition,
Oh
where
my god. This is so
she's
embarrassing.
she's matched up with this guy, Oren, who she poisoned in his breakfast, and he's looking really queasy. And she says she's so nervous I could puke in her head, but then she also says in her head, "I'm gonna be fine," because that's my fucking mantra, which, like, okay, girl boss.
Her
Get
mantra
it.
is I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, her fucking mantra. I feel
Okay?
like that's something she would put on a mug.
Yeah. Live laugh I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, but she turns around. Ooh, she turns around and sees Jack, and he's standing there with wearing a smile that can only be described as evil, which is direct.
Oh, I have such beef with this. I first of all, evil is not an appropriate descriptor for the way someone looks. You cannot have evil eyes.
But he's just smiling like,
I hate it. I hate like that's insane. That's not an adjective. Evil is not an adjective.
I mean, it could be, but not here. Just describe what his face is doing.
Even in like the most obvious sense of like the tower of or like the eye of Sauron is an evil eye. Yeah, literally it is, but that's a bad descriptor for
Yeah, because well, evil is more kind of like your attributes, like your characteristics, the things
it.
that you
Yeah.
do. It's like it's another shade of macabre where she just
Yeah.
doesn't really know what other word to put. So it's like, yeah, he's looking very evil today. Oh,
It's so frustrating. Like they're not Sims.
he's not standing there just being like,
He doesn't have like the evil trait.
I just think of that Elon Musk TikTok where
Yeah.
he's just like doing all the
Like
sim behaviors.
just like
Yeah. That's what Jack's doing
all the
against the wall.
time.
Just this. And she throws some daggers at him because I in the conversation that Zayden had with her the other night, he was like, "You should just throw daggers at him. Tell him like he's not all that." And she's like, "I would never do that. Dane told me to lie low." But then she sees that Zayden is there. Every time she is in the same room as Zayden, she describes this sensation that is a prickling at the back of her scalp. Her scalp can sense when Xaden is in the room or looking at her. She says it 4 times at least in the chapters we've read. And it's a bizarre thing that makes me think that there's something else, some kind of imprinting bullshit at work here because why can she
Mm,
sense when he's looking at her or trying to communicate with her or something?
right.
But
Uh
I don't.
but also like the way that Rebecca describes we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Cuz I had like wrote an entire diatribe about fucking Violet's like physical reactions to Xaden. And it's like, do women actually, does this happen to you? Because I have never experienced something so profoundly, like physically altering as just like laying eyes on a woman that made me come in my pants immediately.
Maybe it just happens for some people. I don't know. I don't know
Maybe
what
I
to
just
tell you.
haven't seen, like, maybe I haven't laid eyes on Xaden. He's
Maybe
so
it's
hot.
uniquely Xaden. Yeah.
Her like joints dislodge themselves of their own volition because he's just so attractive.
Her limbs just fly
Yeah.
off. But basically, the rest of chapter 8 is her getting it well, she's about to get into her fight with Orin, but he starts puking everywhere and
Yeah.
has to be taken to the hospital wing. And then she keeps winning fights over the next few weeks because she repeats the same formula. She finds out who her opponent is, poisons them in different ways as if no one is ever going to notice what she's up to. And she thinks no one can put two and two together. Then she fucks up the timing with one of them. So her opponent is already incapacitated for the day and can't participate in the fight. So Zayden goes, I'll step in. And she's like, what?
No, I haven't poisoned you. I can't win.
Oh no, he's hot.
Like, when it goes into like the montage of her poisoning opponents and winning for free,
Mhm.
I was appalled because I was like, A, are we supposed to be rooting for this kind of behavior? Because this is bad and criminal. And second, why does she keep doing the same thing like 7 times in a row? Is no one catching on?
I know, she thinks she's being really clever because she's using different types of poisoning. It's like someone starts hallucinating. Oh, someone it can't walk in a straight line. Oh, someone just has like medically induced narcolepsy or something. Like
Yeah.
it, but it's all stuff that's like any healer would immediately be like, you've been poisoned by this.
Also, in that same breath, hey, how come anytime Violet fights somebody, they're unable to do it?
Yeah.
That's weird. Must be nothing.
Anyways.
But yeah, that's chapter 8.
Mhm.
And thank God we got a time skip because the kind of like repetitive bullshit kind of stops here.
Mhm. This is where things start picking up.
Yeah, this is where I stopped being miserable and started having a much more fun time. It's
Yeah.
still dreadful.
Yeah, the writing is not good. It's just not. But that's okay. It doesn't
Now
need to be for us to have a good time.
now we're having a silly goose time.
Yeah.
Before it was like, oh no, this is going to be another Kingdom of the Wicked.
Boy, never again.
Chapter 9. We're almost done.
We are.
We got another Princess Eurolong quote, which was
Mhm.
also something incredibly innocuous and like better left out. Didn't need to say it. Uh, this is when we have completely abandoned Violet's desire to like be a scribe anymore.
Right.
Like that has completely left the equation. She never brings it up again.
Dane does though.
Yeah, because he's trying to get her out. Because he's like, "But I love you. You can't. You have to leave so that I can like fuck you later." There's also a moment that, again, Rebecca Yarros has a very bizarre command of the English language,
Mhm.
where I believe she's talking to Dane, and she says something, and he clicks his tongue, like, but she says he clucks.
I've heard that before.
I don't
I don't
think
think
that.
that's uncommon.
I don't think that's right.
I think it actually is. I think it's colloquial.
I don't like it. Doesn't sound right.
But
Not to mine ears.
yeah, that's valid. We have to talk about Xaden and Violet's fight though,
Oh yeah.
because he steps into the ring and his whole purpose for stepping into the ring is to basically teach her a lesson that poisoning all of her opponents isn't a sustainable and or good idea. So she throws a dagger at him, he catches it midair.
So
He disarms
cool.
her completely, and this is when he starts calling her his fun little nickname, Violence, and it's the worst thing I've ever heard in my
Uh,
life, and
tomato, tomato.
I wanted to die. She's like, "My name is Violet," and he goes, "I think my version is better." Because they're enemies, okay? They're gonna fight about stuff.
Yeah.
And he basically just, like, keeps getting her into all these poses where we can just truly understand their height difference. She's like, Zayden and all his 6 foot something comes into the ring. "By the way, I'm very tiny," and then he goes, "You're so tiny." And she and she was like, "Wait, no." And then so she's, like, having a really hard time being close to someone so hot. She literally says out loud, "I fucking hate you," and that's how we know it's enemies to lovers, people.
That's
So
true. That she said it.
she just is yelling at him for no fucking reason, and he could kill her if he wants, and he's not. And he's honestly being very generous. He could have snapped some bones. He could have taken her kneecap in one hand and crushed it, but he's just taking away her daggers, and she's like, "I fucking hate you!" It's like
And I love it because every time she throws a dagger at someone, because it's so ineffective and pathetic, that in my mind, every time she did it, I imagined like her throwing a fistful of silverware at someone, and it just
yeah,
like harmlessly clatters against the floor. Because she's
yeah.
always like, I throw a dagger, and it's like I just imagine her throwing a bunch of spoons because it's about as effective.
There's one quote I wrote down where, oh, she does another stupid one-word sentence in her monologue, "Beautiful fucking asshole," and
Oh.
then goes, "My breath catches and my body warms. The traitorous bitch. You are attracted to toxic men," I remind myself, and yet here I am getting all attracted. I have been I have been since the first second I saw him, if I feel like being honest. And then we get the beautiful literary trope, his eyes darken.
Whatever
And then
that means.
he quietly tells her, "By the way, like, w it's very obvious that you're poisoning your enemies. You shouldn't do that. You're not actually learning anything about how to do hand-to-hand combat if you're just poisoning
Whoa.
people all the time."
Trigger
And
warning.
then
Hold on. Gotta be careful. Hand to hand combat.
oh, I was like, "Wait, what did I say?" That made me so scared.
No, you gotta be careful with hand to hand combat.
True. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think afterwards, she Xaden, like, hands her back off to Dane, and he goes, "She could use a little bit more instruction and a little bit less protection." And
That's
her and
rich.
Dane have this conversation afterwards where they're like, "Do you think the rebel kids are, like, actually plotting to take us down from the inside?" And Dane's like, "I kinda thought so at first, but once you bond with a dragon, it's pretty much, like, no shot that you would do that because all the dragons care about is protecting the country, so and you can't lie, you can't hide your thoughts from dragons. Because I guess once you're bonded to a dragon, you just speak telepathically with them until the day you die." Which is a fun little thing that happens to you.
That's also really dumb and unnecessary.
Mhm.
But it's clear that she also wanted the dragons to be characters as well.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Like, she didn't just want them to be like, you know, I mean, it's not uncommon for dragons to speak. Dungeons and Dragons dragons speak. Dragons in the Witchers talk. Uh, Puff the Magic Dragon, talker. I believe Pete's dragon talked.
Yep.
Talking dragons, not Smaug, he talked.
Notoriously
Yeah,
talker.
big yapper.
Loves to yap, yap, yap.
So it's not uncommon for dragons to talk. However, telepathically seems a bit like she's purposely trying to break the mold, but it just
Yeah,
kind of makes it more lame.
I
Just have
know.
your dragons talk. It's okay.
That doesn't all have to be telepathically, because she ends up breaking her own rules anyways with like, oh, they only talk to their bonded rider.
Yeah.
But Dane, he's fretting more as per his custom.
Yeah.
He says, Violet, I talked to the scribe, Professor Markham or whatever, and told him that, people were trying to kill you all the time. And he said, you could still go be in the scribes if you want. And she's like, dang, when have I fucking ever said I wanted to go back to the scribes? Especially now that I'm winning all these fights. And they talk more about threshing, which is where you get to go on a dragon speed dating adventure where if you don't get a dragon, you will just be left in the woods until it's really dark outside or you'll be dead. And it's also one of those things Dane's giving her more information about what happens at threshing, and it's a free for all murder fest too on the sides if you want it to be, because no one can step in or do anything. So like anybody who has grudges in this hostile learning environment can just kill each other with no consequences whatsoever, even if you're in the same squad, which is supposed to be the number one rule, like don't kill your squad mates.
It make sense, Rebecca.
It won't.
It's like she has a checklist of things that she wants to do it within the context of the story and within the world building, but
Yeah,
she always checks them off in the weirdest and most like backwards way.
yeah.
Like none of this makes sense. Why is I still can't get over why it's totally fine for other students to kill each other,
That is the most bonkers thing. The only safeguard, they're like, "Oh, you can't kill people when they're asleep."
which
That's
gets
the
broken.
only Yeah, it's the only thing.
Like it gets broken later, which doesn't make sense.
Well, that piece has a very specific consequence, though, so at least one piece of it is being
Yeah,
held up.
but like if you just kill someone in broad daylight, they're like, "Nice, you're playing the
True,
game."
a dragon would have killed them on sight too, probably, so
Yeah, yeah, a dragon wouldn't even like them.
that's their justification for everything. Dragons wouldn't even like you,
And
so you
like
gotta die.
they never ask the dragons like if what if
No.
one dude gets killed and then maybe a dragon's like, "Oh, I actually kind of like that dude. That sucks."
Yeah.
It's so weird. Oh, I think during her and Zayden's like conversation or fight or whatever, I think that the most like classic bad boy edgelord line ever is uttered where he says, I've only just gotten started."
Yeah.
And it's like, boy, we really
Here
are
we go.
checking boxes, huh?
Oh, yeah, and we'll continue to check them as the story goes on.
Like I could not believe like of all the shit already in this book, I've barely gotten started is just all right. Well, I guess I understand what I'm in for now.
Yeah.
What else happens in this chapter?
That's it for chapter 9.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Chapter 10. I noticed something amongst all of the characters at this academy. For like everybody has like this deep crazy desire to get themselves a dragon. They all want it real bad. But everyone complains a whole hell of a lot about the really lame Like they're complaining about shit that you would complain about at summer camp. Like my bed's itchy, the food sucks.
Yeah,
And it's like, shut the hell up. Do you want a dragon or not?
I know. This chapter introduces us to another element of their initiation into dragon riding, which is a giant American Ninja style obstacle course that they need to survive in order to make
Yeah.
it up to the flight field where threshing happens. They call it the Gauntlet, and it is like up against this giant cliff face. And there's a lot of hilarious forced like pairing of obstacle to what dragon specific activity it's supposed to mimic. And like none of it makes sense. Like one is supposed to mimic you like climbing your way up a dragon's leg so that you can sit astride it into battle. But they have 2 weeks to figure out how to get through the gauntlet before presentation day or die in the attempt. Like every attempt that they make, the consequence is death. If they fuck up at all, death. Like so you can make it as far as you want and then you can have a little emergency rope down, but you could definitely die during the 2 weeks of learning how to get up the gauntlet to get to the flight
Which,
field.
like you said, it doesn't make sense. If you can practice the same course as much as you want to like study, but then on the day of, if you fail, you die, do they turn on like pyrotechnics?
Well, it's
Like, how do
basically
you die trying to climb up the leg of a dragon to like get on it?
well, they have a ton of shit that could go wrong. Like there's like moving platforms. Like if you just fuck up your if you have a bad timing day, you'll miss a step or like your platform will disappear out from under you and you'll die. And like the first time this happens, uh the first time they do this as a squad, one of her friends dies because she kind of fucks up her footing. Oh, but there's this weird thing. This is afterwards. Okay, but yeah, any like with the gauntlet, she's getting made fun of by a bunch of guys on her squad as per usual. And she makes it through most of the gauntlet, but she's too short to do this last thing that like none of it is described in a way that is like super helpful for us
Yeah.
trying to read it. It's like giant moving things. And then there's like a vertical part that you have to like just like flying squirrel yourself at and try to stick to the wall and hope for the best
Yeah.
and then shimmy your way up a chimney or some shit. But
This all made sense to Rebecca when she wrote it, but us we don't know what you were thinking. So what we see is just like none of this makes sense, man.
no. All we know, deadly, deadly obstacle
It's
course.
everything like you could die going down the stairs to breakfast. So an obstacle course that I imagined like in my head I imagined like an animatronic dragon foot kind of like moving in a weird circle and they have to like climb it. And if they
Yeah.
don't, they get crushed. It's like this is like a Disneyland ride, man.
Yeah. But one of her friends tries to do it and she dies.
Too
And
bad.
then we cut to Violet enacting one of their country's customs where if somebody dies, you burn all their shit. Because her parents decided not to claim her and come get her stuff. So Violet's going she's taking her backpack up to this tower where she's gonna burn all of her stuff, and Dane and her are having a conversation before she goes, and he has this weird thing where he goes, "Are you sure you don't want me to go with you?" And then afterwards it says he asks, "Palming my neck." And it's like this? He's just like, "Are you sure you don't want me to go with you?"
Like this or like this.
I It could be anything. But why is that the correct how is that in any way the thing to do if you're like, "Do you want me to come with you
Well, I
somewhere?"
mean,
You're just is he picking her up by the scruff of her neck to be like, "Go back to the scribes?"
we've already established that Dane is a big tricep grabber.
Yeah, maybe he's a back of the neck grabber too.
Yeah. Why don't you just grab a hold of that ponytail, buckaroo?
It's baffling. And she's like, "No, definitely not." So she goes and burns her name's Orly, I think. I
Yeah.
probably sorry.
And you
But
know, the this death thing because like a bunch of people have died up to this point.
mhm.
and none of it feels impactful because nobody cares.
No.
And if you really want to sell that this college is super lethal, you can't have everybody not care when people die.
I know. It is a very weird choice. They read off their names one time at an assembly, and then that's it.
Yeah,
No one
like
thinks about them ever again.
on more than one occasion, a fellow student dies or is killed in front of Violet,
Yeah.
and she goes, "Oh no!" Anyway,
Yeah, she does not give it a second thought. Like,
nobody does.
as soon as she burns Orly's belongings, never thinks about her again. She's just sitting around having a broody emo time, thinking about her future.
Yeah.
And then she sees, of course, Xaden, Garrick, and Xaden's cousin Bodhi. They show up and her scalp is prickling. Oh my god, he's there. He knows that I'm here. And they have this little like tete-a-tete. And she's thinking about, should she be a scribe? Should she be a writer? And she says to Xaden that she's thinking about what her chances are here. And he goes, wow, I've never been like flirted with like that before. And she's like, no, with you, you conceited prick. And then gets really upset. She's like, fuck you, fuck all of this, blah, blah, blah. And it's all just like we mentioned before, like in the service of trying to convince us that they hate each other, when Violet has never not been like excruciatingly attracted to this guy.
Yeah. And anytime he says anything to her, no qualification of the like content of what he says to her, she's like, "Fuck you. I don't like you don't know me. Fuck you. You
It's
stupid bitch
crazy.
asshole."
It's such a crazy thing, and it's so forced, and he won't stop calling her violence, which is so
Yeah.
fucking cringe.
That above anything should be worth like a fuck you. But she never does it when he says it. Like that's the one thing she doesn't get mad about. It's like when he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" "Fuck you. You don't talk to me. I'm fine."
No, she loves it if he asks that.
Jeez. Okay.
But I think the conversation ends with her complaining about the gauntlet, and he goes, "The right way isn't the only way. Figure it out." And she gets really mad about, "Okay,
That's
have fun."
honestly that's kind of helpful.
Yeah. He's like, "Think outside the box. Hey, try being creative."
Yeah. But also this is to be expected by someone who thought that poisoning 7 people in a row was a viable strategy
Yeah.
that turned out to be actually a viable strategy.
True. In that specific instance, yeah.
I hate it. That like genuinely made me mad. That she
The
faced
poison.
no consequences for poisoning 7 people in a row so that she didn't have to exert herself in a school that is very serious about exerting yourself because if you don't, you'll die. And I'm like, why is the main character a filthy fucking cheater who's trying to cut corners? Get her out of
Well,
here.
I know, and it's wild to me that no, she wouldn't have to do a backup fight.
Yeah.
If somebody just starts puking immediately, it's like, "Oh, they can't do it. Okay, someone else
Who's
sub in."
next? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's next in
Don't you get
line?
to sit out? That's not how gym class works.
And like that doesn't count as a win for you, you dumb bitch.
No, but she's got all these fun, like, you win daggers from people if you beat them in a fight or something. So now she has all these knives that she can just throw with her.
Yeah, like a handful of spoons. uh, is that it?
That's it.
Did we do it? We finished
We
the
finished the
first
first 10.
quarter.
Mhm.
Uh, great. I hate this, but I'm having a great time, but I hate it.
It's not good, but I am enjoying myself.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm only going to enjoy myself more as the book goes on.
I'm dreading with every fiber of my being once we get into like the sex.
That's the part I'm looking forward to.
No, I have to listen to it.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
It's one thing to read it, it's another to listen to someone who's really bad.
With her growly man voice.
What do you do? Like, it's almost the same as, like, it's a step below the voice, the narrator for Crown of Thorns and Roses,
Ooh.
where he's like, Fira, what are you doing here?
Oh,
Anyway, gang, that's it for us. We're done here. We'll see you in 2 weeks for another 10 chapters of this delightful treat.
yes, indeed.
Okay, everybody. Bye bye. Oh, and while you're at it, like and subscribe, will ya?
Oh, yeah, do those things, please.
We should probably put the call to action like way at anyway, we're out of here. Bye.